Mayor Froese, are you there?
And the first thing I have to do is read the preamble. A public hearing is a statutory requirement under Section 464 of the Local Government Act and must be held before third reading of a community plan, rural land use bylaw, zoning bylaw, land use contract amendment bylaw, heritage designation bylaw, or heritage revitalization agreement bylaw, which would change the use or density of use of property. During a public hearing, council acts in a quasi-judicial role for the purpose of allowing persons who believe their interest in property is affected by a bylaw, permit, or other matter to make representations to council, either orally or by written submission, or add comments or elaborate upon correspondence that may have already been presented to council concerning the bylaws. It is important to note that council is not in a position to receive any additional information on the bylaws following the public hearing as dictated by case law. The hearing procedure involves an explanation from the Community Development Division on the purpose of the proposed bylaws and to hear from individuals regarding the bylaws. In order to ensure that all interested parties have a reasonable opportunity to be heard, speakers are requested to keep representations as brief and succinct as possible and no longer than 5 minutes, excluding time required for questions from council. Speakers will be asked to state their name, neighborhood, and city for the record, and if referring to prepared remarks, to submit copies of these to the township clerk. Decorum must be maintained at all times. This includes refraining from applause, booing, or heckling. To assist with large numbers of speakers, individuals must advise the township clerk and sign the speakers list prior to the commencement of the public hearing. The names on the speakers list will be read out during the hearing. Individuals who have already addressed council and wish to add further submissions will wait until the people that have not yet addressed council have had an opportunity to speak. All submissions and speakers lists are considered part of the public record. Council members should not express their views nor debate the bylaws, but may question speakers to clarify particular points in the submissions. Council may consider third reading or third and final adoption at this meeting or at its next regular meeting to be held on Monday, March the 7th, 2022, at the Fraser River Presentation Theatre, 4th floor, 20338 65 Avenue, Langley, BC, which is right here. So with that, I'll ask for a motion to adopt and receive the agenda items. Councillor Arnson moves it, second by Councillor Whitmarsh. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right, there are no development permits tonight. There is one public hearing and one public input opportunity. The public hearing, C1, is Official Community Plan Amendment and Rezoning Application Number 100214 and Heritage Alteration Permit Application Number 101241. This is Township aligning Vicini Holmes and Bylaw 5761 and Bylaw 5762. The public input opportunity, which will run concurrently with this is highway closure and dedication removal of the fort blocks. It's bylaw 5558 and bylaw 5597. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Richardson to provide some background.
Thank you, Your Worship. With your permission, I'll share the screen.
Thank you.
So thank you, Your Worship. The subject Fort Langley Community Plan Amendment, rezoning, and heritage alteration permit applications pertain to a development proposal consisting of 44 townhouses in the 9100 block of King Street. The 1.9 acre site is designated institutional in the Fort Langley Community Plan and is in the Fort Langley Heritage Conservation Area. This air photo depicts the site located north of Mary Avenue between King Street and the Fort Langley National Historic Site. Fort Langley Community Plan Amendment Bylaw 5761 designates the site multifamily to accommodate development as townhouses at a maximum density of 23 units to the acre, and removes a redundant septic approval requirement given the availability of a sanitary sewer system. Rezoning Bylaw 5762 rezones the site from residential zone R1E to comprehensive development zone 106 to accommodate the proposed 44-unit townhouse development. This slide indicates the proposed site plan with vehicular access from King Street. The next series of slides are renderings. Streetscapes, and elevations, as indicated in Heritage Alteration Permit 101241. Sorry, Your Worship, there's a delay here and there's the landscape plan. Staff recommends support of Fort Langley Community Plan Amendment Bylaw 5761 and rezoning Bylaw 5762, subject to 11 conditions, and issuance of Heritage Alteration Permit 101241, subject to 5 conditions, listed on page 17 of Council's agenda. Your Worship, a total of 55 notices were mailed out, 14 written submissions have been received, and there are 13 individuals noted on the speakers list. Those first 3 are, Your Worship, Angela Vickers, Pamela Stenberg, and Carrie Turner, with apologies for my pronunciation there.
Great, thank you very much. So thank you for that. I do have a list so I can read them off. So we'll start with Angela Vickers, and please come forward to the mic. And then if just, for the record, I'll ask everyone to state their name and the neighborhood that they live in, just so it's in the record. And then once you've done that, I'll start the clock and you'll have 5 minutes. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Good evening, Your Worship and councillors. My name is Angela Vickers. I've lived in Bedford Landing for the past 7 years, and for 20 years prior, I lived just outside the fort. My 4 children all attended the Langley Fine Arts School, and I've been involved with numerous volunteer groups over the years. I also work in the area. As we all know, Langley has changed exponentially over the last 25 years. The need for more housing has changed the landscape dramatically, and Fort Langley's no exception. Many of us remember when there were very few mansion-like homes in the fort. The majority of the houses were small ranches or BC boxes. Over the years, we've seen many of these smaller homes demolished and replaced with large, modern houses. Then Bedford Landing came along. I remember well the differences of opinion amongst the residents. Some were really excited, and others were deeply concerned that the development would have a negative effect on the village. Time has proven Bedford Landing to be a success. It's a strong community of people who see themselves as part of Fort Langley. It has brought traffic and support to local business, and more people to volunteer and support the community. And most importantly, it brought with it different styles of homes to meet the different needs of different families at a relatively affordable price. I say relative because the fort has always commanded a higher price for its real estate than the surrounding areas. Housing prices in the village are unaffordable for most. Currently, a tear-down home sells for lot value in excess of $1.5 million. A resale newer home on an 8,000 to 10,000 square foot lot sells for between $2 and $3 million. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Okay, the next one is Pamela Stenberg.
I am a resident, and Pamela Stenberg. I live on Mary, 23478 Mary Avenue, and I too am a realtor, and I support development. But my concern with this project is parking. I notice that this development does show that it has a double-car garage, but where do people park? I go in homes all the time, and people, even if you think about your own garages, what is in them? They're going to have weight rooms, they're going to have bikes, whatever they're going to have in there. One car is going to be parked in a quarter of these townhomes. I have pictures taken on a weekend outside around the park. You're going to see there's not parking to be found all along Mary, all along Royal. And right now, residents are also parking in the Fort's parking lot, which once they start doing tours again and opening up, they're open. But once they open on a grander scale, that's not for public parking. I have a hard time walking from my home down Mary right now on any given day during the work hours. There's no sidewalk. It's unsafe. I take my grandchild for a walk. I'm in the middle of the road. So development, I get it. I'm not opposed to the project per se, but we have to find a way to deal with parking. 2-car parking in a garage is not enough. There needs to be apron parking. There needs to be more parking. Visitor parking is for their visitors. It's not for the residents. So if we think about a block, I saw on Saturday, there's about, on Mary, between Hudson Bay and Royal, there's about 10 cars can park in front of the park. That's without driveways or anything. So even if you had a quarter of those homes not parking one car in there, you're going to have 12 cars parked around that area in an evening if everybody was home at night. But we have to address the parking. That's my biggest concern. So if anybody wants the pictures.
Thank you. You could leave them with the clerk if you.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
That would be great. Thank you very much. Okay, and while you're doing that, the next speaker is Carrie Turner.
Thank you and good evening. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you on this matter. I moved with my wife.
Can you just give your name, just for the record?
Oh, I'm sorry. Carrie Turner.
Yes.
Pardon me.
Thank you.
I moved with my wife to Langley in 1973. We lived in the Willoughby area. We had 2.5 acres. We were very lucky. But we saw the Willoughby area change for a reason, housing. I don't know if what has occurred is what those people were thinking about, but anyways, it's there. So we looked in the early 90s to move. Where in this community could we go where there was a promise of single-family homes, heritage designation, Fort Langley? So we go. My wife was working as a docent, volunteering in the museum at that time. Marvelous. So we looked at that. That's a promise. That's a promise for us that in the future, this is what's going to occur. I have nothing against the townhouses. I have nothing against the fact that we need housing. I know that. I understand that we need to do those kind of things. This is called, I think, spot zoning, right? We've got an opportunity here. Township has gathered that land around there, and the museum is going to be marvelous. I walk by it twice a day. Wonderful. It fits the atmosphere, the ambience of the village. Now, that doesn't make me, I hope, a person who doesn't want anybody else around. I love people. I love the community. It's a marvelously friendly community. And it would be too, I guess, with 44 townhouses. Will I sell my house and move? No. But is it a proper thing to do to take the heritage zoning that exists in one of our province's most fantastic historical sites, and in the shadow of the white building, the great house there, you put 44 townhouses in less than a city block? Drive by, have you? Get in your car, have a look around. Get out and walk. Have a look at it. Use your mind, visualize what's going to happen. Nothing against the design. It's beautiful. Lovely homes. Nothing against the fact that we need those kind of residential areas in our community. But I think the historical aspects outweigh the need for a high density high density community. You know what I'd love to see? I'd love to see like the top of Burnaby Mountain where they've got a rose garden and you can walk. Put gardens in there. Fort Lang is a destination. Again, come by on a Sunday afternoon and you see all those folks that are living in those high rises, condos. They're there. They're walking their babies, having a great time. Do something that's creative and adds to the already existing ambience of the village. So you could class me as a person who, not in my backyard. No, that's not me. I think we should welcome people. Probably what I'd like to see, as I mentioned in my written submission, I drove up and looked at Brookswood Bays and the lovely homes that were built there, single family homes, great. If that's what we need to do. If we need the tax money, do it that way. 44 townhouses will bring a lot of tax money in. I understand that. Again, I'm not stupid. But I do have a passion for the village and for the atmosphere of the village, the historical aspects of it. I'm old. I love old things. I like myself. I'm old. I don't want to leave. But for me, what have I got, 8 or 9 years? But I think about the kids, the young people. That area needs to retain its historical qualities. Putting 44 townhouses in there is just wrong in that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next speaker is Sandy Hope. And after Sandy is Margaret Wildeman.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name is Sandy Hope. I live and farm at 9257 222 Street. I've lived in Langley all my life, most of them at the residence I'm now at. I support this development. Fort Langley has always changed and it needs to keep changing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, the next one up is Margaret Wildeman. Wildeman? Hope I got it right.
Mr. Mayor, Council, my name is Margaret Wildman. My husband and I live at 8839 Hudson Bay. Our concern, and those of many of our neighbors, is around the increased traffic along Hudson Bay that this development will cause. Hudson Bay has jokingly been called the Golden Mile. It's not a joke. It's a truth. Hudson Bay is highly used for walking and cycling for the villagers. It's used daily by elementary school children, elderly residents, and senior home owners. It's used by families with strollers and little bikes. It's used regularly by both physically and mentally disabled folks and their caregivers. It's the daily route for folks who love to walk and jog along the street. Dog walkers exercise their bikes here. It's the favorite route for cyclists. Weekend visitors to Fort Langley often walk the street, admiring the view of the farms below. Everyone, cyclists, walkers, and cars, must share the road. Pedestrians and cyclists are vulnerable. The idea of increased traffic is frightening. The prospect of 44 townhouse units will mean an extra 88 to 100 cars along this street to enter and exit the vicinity of development. To our mind, Hudson Bay Street, because it has no stop signs and no traffic lights, will be their route of choice to exit the village at 88th and Glover. And important for you to note, Hudson Bay Street has a blind S-corner at St. Andrews that is already a cause of concern for pedestrians, plus another sharp corner at 88th. Substantial increased traffic is worrisome. The developer will suggest a study has been done, a traffic study, and that the roads leading from the new development are underused. The question, did the study take into consideration the pedestrian foot traffic and cyclists' use that because of lack of sidewalks also need to share the road? Everyone, walkers and cyclists, old and young, have to use the street. It's an important aspect for you to consider. Consider, what effect will a large addition of population and cars in this quadrant of Fort Langley have? How can pedestrians, old and young, be protected? What will be done to correct the problems that are surely on the horizon? When this proposed development creates or magnifies a problem, how will you fix it? We respectfully ask that when you approve any development, that you consider the implications that your decision will have on this portion of Fort Langley. Not only the nearby residents, but all the citizens of Fort. Please reflect on how your decision will affect our safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next is Linda or Cliff Mantell.
Hello, everybody. My name is Linda Mante. I live on Royal Street.
Oh, Mante, I'm sorry. I apologize. I thought that was an
That's
L.
okay.
It's an I.
It's a common problem. My main concern is the parking. We've come to accept that this development is happening and we don't want to be NIMBYs, and so we're saying, hey, bring it in, that's fine. But there's no driveway parking. And the reason Bedford is beautiful is because there's tons of parking in Bedford. That's a beautiful development. There's, in addition to the garage parking, there's all kinds of outdoor parking for those back lanes, and it's beautiful. This has none of that. It only has the garages, and if a conservative estimate is that 20 cars will have nowhere to park, there's no driveway parking. So if they aren't in that garage, they're going to be on my street. They're going to be all over our all over our lawns, and because it's not easy to park on these little side streets, so they kind of almost have to park on the grass. You have to park on people's front yards almost, and it would be nice if this had been designed in a manner, or it could be redesigned in a manner that allows them to have a driveway where you can squish a car or two in. That'd be great. But if they aren't in there, they're all going to be on our side streets, and that's a hell of a mess. Excuse me. So that's my concern. Just maybe put some driveways in. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, and next we have Brian Holmes.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Brian Holmes. I live on Wright Street in Fort Langley. And I'm going to say right out, I'm opposed to the development. I think closing Royal Avenue is a mistake. You're already hearing there's not enough parking. That's going to put a dead end at the new cultural center, which is a potential safety issue, I think, in the long term. The other thing that even building this, from the information that I've heard, is the cultural center is probably too small to hold the artifacts that we already hold at the Centennial Museum. So now there's no room for expansion. In looking at the development, it seems like the roads within the development are so narrow they're probably one way. You've already heard about the challenges with parking and only 10 visitor stalls. One entrance to that community as well. I'm sure it probably meets code for fire prevention and safety issues, but it still seems like a problem if one person gets out of line with a car parked where it shouldn't be. The other thing is you're putting a high density next to the historic site, and that just doesn't seem to make sense to me when there's you have roads with sidewalks. We've heard about the problem. I have a problem on Wright Street with the amount of traffic, the increased lights on Glover Road of diverted cars to different roads. And people walk and cycle, as you already heard, and there's really isn't a safe place. Mary, on a weekend afternoon, there's no place to park now. And there's a lot of people back and forth. It's hard even to ride a bicycle or a motorcycle up there sometimes with the amount of foot traffic. So I'm really opposed to where it is. I think that a development such as this, well, it could be good for the community, needs to be in the core of the community, not on the edge beside the National Historic Site. So that's all I have. It's conclusion. I'm opposed to it with where it is.
Thank you. Right, Sharon Jeannette. See, I'm just messing this up, and I apologize.
Just think gin and tonic. Jeanette's.
Jeannette, thanks.
I just wanted to speak on behalf of my neighbors. We like the idea of the new cultural center, the library, et cetera.
If you could just put your name in
Oh,
for the
I'm
record
sorry.
and the neighborhood you
Okay.
live in. Thanks.
Yeah, I don't follow directions well.
Oh, that's okay.
Sharon Jeannette. I live at 9061 King Street. And, I've talked to the neighbors and, we like the idea of the cultural center, the library and everything. It's going to be wonderful to be on our street. But we are very fearful that this townhouse complex will lead to a freeway type street in front of our houses, because it just makes sense that they'll come down Glover and turn right onto Francis and then left onto King Street, and they go zipping by our house. When my husband and I were looking to live in Fort Langley, we walked in different neighborhoods and felt that King Street would be perfect for us because it's close to the main village and within walking distance to our doctor, accountant, mailbox, pharmacy, dentist, and many interesting shops and restaurants. But we thought it was a safe and quiet place to retire. But you kind of upset this dream of ours, as well as the lives of other residents on King Street and in the surrounding neighborhoods. As far as a heritage alteration, it is unforgivable for you to want to change the charm of this village. We all love that it is a quaint little town, that was a huge part of the draw to live in Fort Langley. We have seen what zone changes can do to a quiet neighborhood. You don't have to look too far to see what happens when zones are changed. Just look at the Willoughby area. And I remember when I was teaching at Willoughby, the residents were trying to keep Willoughby rural. You gave no consideration to them and went ahead and created an enormous development. And now I find it interesting that a few of the residents you pushed out of Willoughby are now in Fort Langley, and some of them will once again be affected by your zone change. I'd like to know how this development will benefit the residents in that area, King Street or Queen Street or Royal or Hudson's Bay. Will you make a dead-end street to keep the traffic off our little street? King Street's just a little street. And I think it's the best way to keep the street safe is maybe putting calming measures in, or maybe put a barricade at the end of King Street so that it'll become like a freeway, and there's children that live on that street. Anyway, I'm just pleading with you to please leave our street the quiet, safe street that it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Al Steiner. Is Al Steiner here? Okay, not here. Julie Kell.
Good evening. Julie Kell. I live in Fort Langley, Bedford Landing. First of all, I am in favor of the rezoning of the subject properties to create a townhouse development. I understand that this proposal will help to build the construction of the new museum and cultural center. However, I am not in favor of the proposed plan for the townhouse development for two main reasons. When I went to the open house that was held at the hall, the first thing that struck me was the density and lack of green space. 44 townhouses is far too many. For the past several decades, these properties only had a handful of houses. There was lots of grass, trees, open space. With 44 townhouses, there is almost no green space. Part of the reason for this is the design. Because the developer wants to build as many homes as possible, there's no front door next to the garages. In order for visitors or people dropping off packages, the paper delivery person, to go to the front door, they have to either go on a path around the outside of the complex or down a path down the middle of the so-called backyards. This greatly reduces the size of the yards and therefore green space. My second problem with this development is the use of Royal Street as part of the development. I was quite surprised to see it being blocked off. This will cause even more parking issues for Fort Langley. There is a limited number of visitor parking stalls. Also, how will visitors access homes on the Fort side of the development if Royal Street is closed? My parents live in a townhouse development. People who have trucks can't park their car in the garages. People who store items in their garages can't park in them, so they park on the street. But where will the owners of these townhouses park their cars? There isn't street parking on Mary King or Mavis. As many people have said, there's streets, but then there's no sidewalks, so people are parking on people's grasses. So once again, while I'm in favor of the redevelopment, I understand it's going to help to pay for this new cultural center, I'm not in favor of the plan. If the reason for the large number of townhouses and the shutting down of Royal Street is to generate the money for the museum and cultural center, we need to find another way. Keep Royal Street open, reduce the number of townhouses, and find alternate ways to fund the museum and cultural center. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, Brandon Baker.
I'm Brandon Baker, live at 23166 88th Avenue. It's pretty much on the corner of 88th and Bartlett on the south side. I've lived in the Fort for 4 years. A little bit of background. My wife and I moved in and we had our first child, and after 6 months of being there, we got broken into with like 4 other houses that day, and it was basically 9 in the morning, and they totally destroyed our house and the 4 other houses. So I'm a shift worker, and my wife's scared at night, so I install about 6 cameras around the house so I could watch it while I'm at work. So my kid grows up a bit, and he was 2 when we moved in, and I got him into that daycare that's it's basically, you can see it from our front. And I started crossing 88th. This is 2.5 years ago. And I noticed people just flying up that road in the morning specifically. In the dark, and then right at 88th, they don't do any snow clearing, like the school gets snow clearing, but so you have nowhere to walk. We have kids that live up the road. They're walking on the side of the road while these people are flying up and down the road. So I started checking the cameras, and I started looking at how fast people are going, especially at night. So I called the township, and they said, well, we just put in some traffic calming in front of the school. So I was like, well, good for you. It took you that long? Like, that was only 2-3 years ago, because I wanted traffic calming on 88th. So then a year goes by, and I see it again. There's a couple of girls that live up the road. Their dad walks them to school. They should be able to walk to school by themselves. The dad's too scared to walk, let their kids walk to school. These kids are like 12 years old because of the traffic right now on 88th. It's nuts. Now we're going to stick 44 townhouses up the road. And if there's no traffic calming, if there's no traffic, like it's nuts. Even on a Sunday, you get lots of people through there, but they're a little slower on Sunday because they're looking. You know, it's a nice neighborhood. But now you're going to get people coming home from work. You're going to have people going to work. It's going to be dark. At the same time, these kids are going to school. Now, like I said, I could throw a baseball from my front porch to the school. My kid will never walk to that school. I'll paint a picture. I walk across the street with the kids, and right at the corner of Bartlett, there's no sidewalk. There's a giant puddle. The kids have to walk out into the road, into traffic, to get around that puddle. Now, at that corner, while cars are flying, you have to walk across this diagonal across the corner. And you imagine how busy it is with all the people that are dropping their kids off at school? So now you're walking across there, jagged way. Now you walk into the school. There's no gate that lets you go into you have to walk into traffic, like into where they're pulling in the kids. There's another puddle there. Like it's like the state of it right now is bad. So anyways, I'm digressing into difference. So by putting this much more traffic on our roads, it's going to be an issue. So I just wanted to make sure that I don't want to hear study, but I want to hear something changing. Because actually, when you go to that corner right now, and that new sign 2 years ago that you guys put up, or the township put up there for traffic calming, go look at it. It's pushed over right now. You want to know why? Because somebody hit it, because they're speeding around the corner. You go there right now, there's a headlight right next to that thing, and that sign is like this. And we're going to stick 44 townhouses up the road without even touching the traffic on 88th. It's unbelievable. Both my kids, I got a 5-year-old turning 6, and my daughter's about 4. I can't ride my bikes with them because of the traffic in the neighborhood. I have to walk while they ride. So anyway, and I wasn't going to come in here today, but I thought, if one of these kids get hit on the corner of this thing, I would never forgive myself for not coming in and just saying, like, something needs to be done now. If it's not done now, then maybe we should get the developers to do something with it. But it's way overdue. Anyway, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, Danny Evans.
Danny Evans. I've got the property actually directly across the street at 9119 King. And I guess taking a little different approach, I think with the added growth in there, the growth will spur on sidewalks and proper pedestrian traffic to get back and forth through the fort. I'm in favor of the development and the look of it. I think it looks really good. It's an excellent job. The only thing I'd like to do is that I step forward because I'd like to build a family home at 9119 King. To do that, I would have to put in a development application and go through this whole process rather than what I would like to do, and I did make a minor request or asked at one of the open houses if I could perhaps join in on the application or some way expedite it along with the development that's going forward now. If it's not done now, I doubt that anyone else will step forward to do it because it's a very arduous process. So really what we're going to have right now is this beautiful development, or I think it's going to be nice based on the developers that are doing it. I think we're going to have a really nice looking development. I think a lot of the issues that are being talked about will get taken care of because there's going to be more housing in there, and it will perpetuate getting proper sidewalks and so on done throughout the area. But what we're going to have is this development done, and right where I live, this little house at 9119 King, the road stops, the sidewalks stop, everything stops right there. And I would like to step forward and say, hey, I'm more than willing to pay my fair share. But let me either join in on that application to expedite that a lot of what these people are talking about, it doesn't get done piecemeal, so that we've got full sidewalks, both sides of the street, we got proper parking, both sides of the street. Right now, what we're going to have is a development mostly done, other than this little rancher that sits across the street, doing nothing. So if possible, I'd like to join in on that application. I'm definitely for the development that's going forward there. I like the look of the homes, and I would be more than pleased to develop along with them, develop a similar look or a very same look using the approach that they've got there. So I'd be willing to work along with the developer if they so choose, and especially with the township. And I always pride myself in doing something that's good in the township, that looks good, and working along with the people that are in the township. So if I could either my name passed on to planning, if I could meet with someone in planning, I'd like to do that. And I think what we'll end up with is a subdivision that looks like it should, rather than having this subdivision go along this street on King, and then on the last 100 or 50 yards, all of a sudden it's got no sidewalk, the road not finished, and then to move in after that, they've just done what they've done on our street now on 217A. They finished off, and between the two developments, or the two lots that were done, they've got beautiful pavement there, and in between it, it's chopped up. It's worse than a gravel road because it's got potholes and the rest, all for about 30 feet. And that's what we're going to have if I don't go along and develop at the same time on King. We're going to have a beautiful paved road going along there, and then you're going to run into the part that's in front of 9119 King, and it's, at least in my estimation, it's not going to be finished. So we could have finished sidewalks, what these people are asking for, to have finished sidewalks in the front of the house, both sides, and all done in one shot, rather than maybe not at all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, and next is Dan Sunick.
Hello, my name's Dan Sundvik. I live on Royal Street. I'm actually building a house there right now. We've owned a place there for 15 years, and our plan has been to retire there. We're in Walnut Grove the rest of the time. Now, I heard somebody talk about monster houses. My house is a rancher. It's 1,600 square feet, and it's built as a passive house. So it uses very little energy, and it's just enough room for the two of us. Now, this development, first of all, I'd like to say thank you for letting us speak, though I assume it's not going to change many people's minds. This development, to me, is the wrong development. I understand we need housing, but housing doesn't come at just any cost. Langley Township is always promoting green. You look at your website, and you've now got a website, Green Building, and you're talking about building green, reducing carbon. This development is not building green. It's, from my understanding, it's at a level 3 in the energy efficiency scale. I might be wrong, but that's what I got from one of the meetings. That's the lowest level you can go to. Level 5 is the top one. By 2032, all new buildings have to be level 5. You guys are just trying to do the least you can. It's not the right thing to do. You guys should be leading. The council, if you're going to put together a proposal, you should be leading it. If you want us to understand your green site, then I think you should be doing the same things. Vancouver has banned natural gas in new buildings. No more natural gas. Again, from my understanding, this site is going to have natural gas as the energy use. Natural gas produces carbon, greenhouse gases, global warming. Why would you carry on with that kind of concept? The new thing right now, or probably the heating that's the best right now, is electric heat pumps. Langley Township has a whole page on electric heat pumps. BC government will give us rebates for heat pumps. Why aren't we looking at something like that? And then the next is we say we need more housing, which I know we do, but nobody can afford to live in Fort Langley. It's just kind of how it is. I'm sorry, but these places, they're going to go well over $1 million, I'm sure of that. That's out of the reach of families. We're not bringing any families in for that. This is going to be more retired people, things like that, people with money. What you should be looking at is some way to put in some kind of housing that people could afford. Vancouver has just passed a new bylaw, and with this bylaw, they're buying up big properties and they're putting in 6 to 7 houses on each property. Then they're going to organize it such that they can help pay for it. These are going to be in the $600,000 range. So these are livable, affordable houses. I'm pretty sure this won't be. Oh, another thing too, of course, you've heard all about the parking, and I'm probably as fearful of it as everybody else. We moved into the nice neighborhood we have with people walking up and down the streets. Now I assume there's going to be cars parked on my lawn because there just isn't enough parking for this. This just feels like the wrong development for this spot. You could spend some more money, put underground parking in. They're doing it over at the museum. It's a perfect site to do that. And then you could not only have parking for those people, but help to alleviate some of the other parking. Because right now, there's already not enough parking in Fort Langley, and then we're going to add all this to it. So it's just leaving us with a bad feeling. It's just the wrong development for the spot. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so that exhausts the speakers list that I have. So at this point, I would ask if there are any further submissions from the public regarding public hearing C1, and that's bylaws 5761, 5762, 5558, 5597. Yeah, please come forward.
Sorry, can I take this down?
We're keeping ours on.
Okay. Misty Van Popta, I live on Royal Street. I think this is the first time I've been before council where I haven't had a prepared speech, which is a little bit odd, so we'll see how well I wing it. We've heard from neighbors on Hudson's and King, and of course I share their same issues, which is traffic. This will be the third development that we've had in Fort Langley that consideration for the density has not been considered with the egress to getting to main roads. So you're taking 7, I think I counted 7.5 houses and creating 44 houses. And you've literally got that development in the northeastern corner of Fort Langley where there's only one main road, which would be Mavis, that has signalization. You look at McBride Station, we built 52 townhomes on a back lane and expect them to go out onto a main road without signalization. So my challenge with this one is obviously that the traffic is funneling. It will funnel down King Street, absolutely. People are not going to take Mary because there's no signal at Glover Road, and not that I'm wanting tons of signalization throughout Fort Langley, but I am starting to get concerned that we're not being thoughtful where we're putting our density. Shoving it in back corners, putting it on back lanes. Even Lily Terrace, which is in the right location, you've literally put it on the most dangerous intersection in Fort Langley, which is Francis and Glover Road. That intersection there is so narrow that you have to drive into the oncoming lane in order to make a right onto Francis, and you put density right at that corner without any expectations of fixing that intersection. So between the densification being in the wrong spot, and again, I'm not anti-development, I'm not a NIMBY. I mean, my my industry that I work in is construction and development. So by all means, I'm not saying that this doesn't, that we don't need to be building development here. I think that my challenge to you is the densification of this lot. It's not appropriate for the appropriate amount of egress that we have onto main roads. This will definitely turn King Street into a freeway, Royal Street, Hudson's Bay, and I can sympathize with my neighbors. Yes, the parking is also obviously going to be an issue. If the only thing about the pandemic that I've appreciated is that the Fort National site has stopped putting events at the park there, which plugged up that whole entire intersection almost every single weekend in the summer. But, you know, once now that events are starting to happen again, I imagine that park is going to get used quite a bit again. All of those side streets are already plugged up all summer long. So if you've got a development with minimal parking, obviously it's going to just exacerbate the problem. So this is more just of a challenge to you guys to start challenging staff with regards to density and where we're putting it. Density should always be on main roads, not in back corners of established neighborhoods. And thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. All right, I'll ask for any further submissions from the public on public hearing C1. And a second time, submissions from the public on public hearing C1. Yeah, if you want to speak, just stand up and come down.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was.
That's
I
okay.
didn't put my name on the list, but.
Oh, that's okay. Now we're down the list. We're just asking. So go ahead.
So I'm Malcolm Weatherstone. I'm a resident of Fort Langley on Bartlett. And so what my concern is here is so evident that there's inappropriate planning in Fort Langley. And I have said publicly is that because this is a heritage zone, there should be special permission requested by anybody who wants to build anything in Fort Langley. How do you do that? You have to do what is done in Victoria, is you have to have a public panel. And this is a very good public panel where you need to have meetings that concern developments in Fort Langley before they become, how would you say, become a fait accompli, because it's developers seem to have the inside track these days, and I don't think it's fair. You have Fort Langley, which is a treasure, heritage treasure, and this has nothing to do with Fort Langley or heritage. So I think you need to go back to the drawing board and rethink approaches. And that includes all the other developments that have been thought about. And we've had recently something in the social media for huge development along Fraser River. And I don't think it's right that without public input or without discussions, that these kinds of decisions should be made. And these decisions are made, this is more or less permanent. I would think it's going to be here for how many years? Will it stay there? I don't know. But you're making permanent decisions within a heritage zone. And I don't think this is correct. So I would say there should be more consultation with the people who live within the heritage zone and those people in BC and Canada who have an interest in this heritage zone. So that's what I haven't done it yet, but I will make a presentation to council.
Great, thank you.
At the appropriate moment.
Thank you, that's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, again, I'll ask for submissions from the public on public hearings. Yeah, please come forward. Oh, one of you. You can come forward and then.
Hi, thank you for letting me speak. My name is Jill Blaylock, and I live on Francis, actually right between King and Royal. And you know, when you cycle daily along this avenue, and comes back to 1978 when my family first moved to Fort Langley, and then I was very driven to come back to this community, and I relocated here about 10 years ago. And again, when you're living on Francis between King and Royal, you know darn well what's going to happen to the traffic there. They're going to come down Francis and turn right onto King, or they're going to come down Francis and turn right on Royal. And then I'm thinking, and what are they going to do if they do the Royal thing? They're going to stop at the end of Royal and dash around all over the place, because you guys are actually stopping and putting a dead end on a heritage piece of property that's been here for over 100 years. It is a jewel to this community. It is the best thing about the township of Langley. It is so unique, and it is such a desirable thing for a huge amount of the population. The green space is a gift. We were very lucky that a couple of things with respect to Parts Canada, they did right. We have a gift, and now we're exploiting that gift. We're going to put a subdivision, the back of the subdivision, on Parks Canada property, and we're going to, right, it's going to abutment right on the heritage, right on the orchard that has, old 100-year-old pear trees on that orchard, right on the community, the heart of a community. And I echo the people here that have said things like, it's not that I'm against density. I understand we have realities, but I'm really, really inviting you guys to look at your options and look at the unique opportunity to celebrate this community for what it has going for it. And then we can hopefully adopt something that will address all of our community needs. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. My name is Andrea Gronfeld. I live on 23460 Mary Avenue. So our home is kitty corner to the development. I grew up in Fort Langley. I was able to go to Fort Langley Elementary as a child. I'm very proud to be able to have our daughter go to this school. I walk my daughter every day to school. And even now, it's busy at times with no sidewalks. We're getting pulled to the side as our neighbors are going to work, and it's a friendly wave and we hear each other and we're aware of it. But it's still not a simple, easy walk with no sidewalks and still minimal traffic. As we bring in more cars, just as that gentleman said, we have to be aware of the safety of our children. As we look at the increase of electric vehicles, the challenges of hearing these cars, bringing children and walking to school, rainy days, we've got hoods, we've got toques, we live in Canada, umbrellas. It is difficult to hear sometimes these cars. And as we're adding density, please just think of the children and our neighborhoods. And as parents, when we walk to school, I will not be letting her walk to school in grade 6, grade 7, the opportunity that I had growing up in Fort Langley. It will not be an option for her with these increase of development. So I just want to say, we love Fort Langley. It is our village, it is our community, but we want to be safe as well. And the challenges that we see with this development, in addition to parking, please be aware of the safety of our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, are there any further submissions from the public regarding public hearing C1? And I'll ask for a second time, submissions from the public regarding public hearing C1. And the third and final time, submissions to the public regarding public hearings C1. Okay, I see no further submissions from the public, so now I'll close the public portion of the public hearing and ask the proponent if they wish to respond to the concerns that have been raised by the public.
Hello, thank you, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to be here tonight and to respond to some of what we've heard in the room here. I'm Michelle Sotomayor, Director of Development with Pacini Holmes, Project Lead. I'd also like to introduce those from the team who are here with me tonight as well. We're also available to answer any questions you may have. From Pacini, we have Ben today, our COO. We have Joe Carrera, our VP of Development. And we also have Bianca Bellini, she's our development coordinator. And from our consultant team, we have Gord Clausen, principal at Sightlines Architecture. We have Mary Chan Yip of PMG Landscape Architects. we have Gary Vlieg of CTS, Traffic Engineering Services. We have Glenn Romaine, he's arborist with Van der Zam and Associates. And we have Peter Moroso, a civil engineer with City West Consulting. Before I respond, I would like to take a moment to thank staff for their hard work and their effort to get the project to where it is today. We really appreciate their hard work. So I would like to take the opportunity to respond to a few of the themes that we did hear tonight. One theme in particular that did come up was parking. I believe it was mentioned, yes, every home does have two-car parking, primarily side-by-side in format. And we do also have flex and storage spaces in most of the homes for further functionality. We are providing the 10 visitor stalls, and we are in line with the township's bylaw, and we are not asking for a relaxation. And furthermore, there will be a covenant registered on title mandating that garages be used for parking. So that is one element. Oh, sure. Would you like me to restate?
Sure, if you just go, yeah, excuse me, yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, I suppose with the mask, it muffles it a bit, so, yeah.
I'll try to speak up a little
just
bit more.
Thanks. If you just
Thank you for letting me know.
Recap
Yeah.
kind of what you just said on the parking issues.
Yeah, absolutely. So every home has two-car parking. Most are side-by-side in format. We have additional flex and storage spaces on the ground floor for enhanced functionality beyond garages. We are providing 10 visitor stalls. All of this is in line with the township's bylaw. We're not seeking a relaxation. And there will be a covenant registered on title to mandate that garages be used for parking, not for storage of other items. In regards to the density, so that is, something we did hear come up tonight. So this is a very unique site. We spent quite a bit of time considering the surrounding adjacencies, the adjacent park, the surrounding single family, the community plan, and also the public input that we heard from the surveys and meetings that we had. And also we see the need for this form of housing in Fort Langley. It's 3 and 4 bedroom family townhomes, which there are really very, very limited options in the fort, and we need more of today. So this density has been considered with all of that in mind, putting forward this proposal. In regards to the traffic component, we did have a traffic study completed. I might ask my traffic engineer to join me here and speak to the traffic piece of the study. Yep, so this is Gary Vlieg of CTS Traffic Engineering Specialists.
Good afternoon, or good evening, Your Worship, and members of council and the public. Traffic is always a concern, no matter where you are, and the citizens are expressing their concerns about the potential for increase in traffic. One of the things that we do when we look at this type of a development is we consider how much traffic is going to be generated by the development and when that traffic is going to be generated. So we look at both a morning peak and an afternoon peak period. For the type of development, we have manuals that we use that are based on real-world examples of where they've counted how much traffic gets generated by the particular type of development. In this case, for multifamily types of development, and for the record, we've verified what we refer to as trip generation. We've verified that by using real-world examples here in the township so that we have confidence in the numbers that we're using. That typically the trip generation associated with this type of development is less than 1 vehicle per dwelling unit during the peak hour. So while there may be 44 units and there may be 44 parking spaces, that doesn't translate into 44 or even 88 vehicles using the roads during the morning or afternoon peak period. The data that we have suggests that it's not going to be 44, it'll be 26 vehicles. And looking at the area, we've assumed, based on the traffic counts that we undertook, that, and the number of people mentioned it as well this evening, that some of the traffic will definitely use Mary, will definitely use Hudson's Bay, but they'll also be using Mavis. So there are a number of different opportunities for traffic to get to the development. Will people be able to notice this change? No.
Excuse me. I think in the beginning I asked that we would have decorum here and would be no laughing, heckling, booing, all that sort of thing. So he does have a right to speak just like everyone else did. And I would ask that you respect those rules. Thank you. Carry on.
And I can understand people's skepticism, but the reality from our perspective, and again, having been doing this for over 30 years, is that with 26 new vehicles and with different opportunities, so you're talking 26 vehicles coming in and leaving during the PM peak hour. Think about that. In an hour, that's less than one vehicle a minute. That's actually one vehicle every 2 minutes. If you put your watch on and you think about 2 minutes, you're not going to notice it. That's the reality. Cumulatively, if there's lots of other development, definitely. And I'm sure that there has been an increase in traffic in Fort Langley as the fort continues to develop. But this particular development, no, there won't be an appreciable difference in traffic volumes on any of the adjacent streets. It will increase, absolutely. But will it be noticeable? In my professional opinion, no, it won't be.
Thank you. I have a question from Councillor Richter.
Certainly.
Yeah, she's on Zoom, so.
Yes. You probably hear my voice sort of echoing in the background there. I had a question about Royal Street. Why does it have to be closed? Because it would seem to me that leaving it open would increase the flexibility in traffic circulation.
Through the chair, that wasn't part of our brief, and it's my understanding that that's a township initiative, but I'll defer to Michelle.
Thank you. So Royal Street has, for this particular proposal, always been envisioned closed concurrently.
Yeah.
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 I'm too short for this.
That's okay.
All right, there we go. It's always been envisioned while we've been involved with this particular planning process that Royal could be closed. I understand it's contemplated in alliance with the community plan in terms of supporting the museum and in terms of a walkable area. And we're providing a public connection to maintain Royal as well in that area. But I would defer to potentially to staff if they wanted to further comment on the closure.
Okay, I think the discussion with staff has to take place when we go. But just a follow-up question, Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Sure, go ahead.
Can the development proceed without Royal being closed?
Question to me?
Yes.
Yes.
As planned, that would require significant redesign. This particular plan would not be feasible without Royal.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll let you carry on with your presentation. Thank you.
I do have one more theme that I would like to address, if appropriate. So another theme that we heard or passionately spoken about was how are we going to address sustainability in the climate, right? And so we are incorporating a variety of measures to do so. We are meeting Step Code 3, and there are performance requirements associated with that, air tightness and so forth. We are looking at heat pump air conditioning systems in each home as well, and have also in our design looked at and included passive cooling elements such as large canopies over windows and doors to provide that shading for passive cooling. We're also providing a new public pathway amenity to encourage that sustainable transportation options, that connection along Royal, as well as new infrastructure on Mary, King, and Mavis to complete the streets in terms of curb and boulevard roadways for that goal of complete streets. So those are some of the things that we're doing, as well as we are planting more trees than required as well to contribute to the ecosystem.
Thank you.
Okay.
I do have Councillor Arneson and then Councillor Whitmarsh. Councillor Arneson?
Hi, thank you. Thank you very much for bringing up the environment. And I was interested because there was an earlier comment and you're talking about how it's going to be a SIP code number 3. Just in terms of the way the heating and cooling and the heat pumps, is there any possibility they could be electrified as opposed to gas?
We would be looking at that as we continued through the building design process, but we are definitely aware that that's important.
Yeah, that would be actually an improvement. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Whitmarsh?
Yeah, thank you for coming today. The question I had 2 questions, I guess. One was about Royal Street and what would be replaced there in terms of cycling or walking paths or anything, that sort of thing. And the other thing that came up, it seems a number of times, was around green spaces. And just maybe you could speak to a bit about thinking about green spaces within this complex and what kind of thoughts you've had around that.
Yeah, absolutely. So to address your note about the Royal Street, so we will be providing a public pathway. It is a 3-meter wide concrete pathway, in addition to landscaping, that will be available for walking, cycling, dog walks, and ties right into the Fort to Fort Trail network, and that will be registered and maintained as public for the foreseeable future. As well, we on the green space piece. So we do have designated areas within the development that are considered age-friendly amenity areas, and those are in 2 spots, and they're programmed for different types of socialization. There are garden plots, play structures, seating and gathering areas for the residents to enjoy right within the development itself. And they are as well adjacent to the beautiful Fort Park and everything else that Fort Langley has to offer. And each home does have its own private outdoor space directly off the living in the form of a deck that does function for further outdoor gathering.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I don't have any other questions. Do you have anything more to respond to? That's it?
Oh, maybe one item? One of the fellows came up here, I believe Mr. Evans, mentioned he was interested in speaking with us about moving his piece forward, and as neighbors, we're open to talking with him about that, should that be of interest.
Okay, great. We'll staff
So,
know that. Thank you.
other than that, thank you very much for your time and consideration, and really appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, with that, I'll now close the public hearing and would ask for a motion to terminate the meeting. Termination. Councillor Long moves termination. Second by Councillor Kunst. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much for coming out.
So